values.
I'll do it.
All right.
At the Grounds Guys, we show that we care by putting the needs of our customers first, by always having a positive and helpful attitude, and by treating everyone and everything with respect. By living our code of values, we enjoy life in the process.
Awesome. That is awesome. Okay. This workshop's focused on LMN time, job setup, and scheduling. And this is this picks up where we left off this morning. As I have in each of these workshops, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions about what we covered in the previous class, previous workshop, that you'd like to have answered before we move forward. Okay, I'll take the silence as a note. Okay, so what we're going to end up covering is the job setup process. We're going to cover the files within the jobs. We're going to cover job groups, scheduling, invoice setup, photos and history and photos, and invoice history. And there's a number of other things, setting up materials, setting up rates, and that kind of stuff. So, so this is kind of what you do in the setup process here, and how you set up your jobs that you bring into production is going to have a significant impact on how successful your teams in the field are going to be, as well as how successful you are in moving the data through production and into invoicing. There's another step to this, which we'll get into more in depth in scheduling and in managing crews, utilizing time and the time app. And so those are some classes that will actually, some workshops that we'll do next week. So with that, I'm going to switch over to GG Pro. So bear with me here 1 second.
Hey, Dave, real quick. Have you sent out the schedule for next week already?
I have not.
Okay.
As you can tell, I'm behind.
No worries.
And I will have that sent to you probably tomorrow.
Thank you.
Based on the emails that I've got to respond to after I'm done today, it will be a late day again. So, all right. You guys can see me working through GG Pro, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So where we left off, we had imported jobs. And I'll go into, so I'm in LMN time, and I'm going down here to jobs and job list. And if I take out the verbiage, then you'll see here where I actually have my two practices that I put in, the install and so this is the one that we brought in. Let me double check. Yeah, so this is the one that we brought in that was the service estimate. And so you can see we had the mowing, bed weeding, fall cleanup, sidewalk edging, and the spring cleanup. All right, so let's take a look at this one first. So we imported this customer in, this job. And so from the top, we have what we call a job overview. In this tab, we actually, we have the job name, and it's what we actually used over in the estimate. The one thing I will tell you is this is what your guys are going to see in the field. So sometimes it's important to be able to maybe further clarify this. So instead of this being lawn and landscape maintenance, maybe might be something like turf care program, if you have something separate. So the lawn and landscape maintenance would just really be the mowing. It would be the full contract. But if you had something that you're adding in, an extra that you're bringing in, let's say it was an aeration, then you might want to put to 2020 aeration, fall aeration, or something like that. And the reason being, obviously, is that if everything's named the same, then when your guys are in their mobile device and they're looking for what to clock into, it's going to be difficult for them to be able to select the difference between the two. Does that make sense to everybody? No? Maybe?
Yep.
So your naming convention, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you to repeat.
So your naming convention here is essential. So in this case, let's just put, I'm just going to say it's John Doe. And then we're just going to say that we're looking at the 2020 lawn and landscape maintenance. And so then we have a job short name. And again, there are places within the software where it won't be able to take more than a certain number of characters. So the question is, what short name do you want? And in this case, it allowed me to put in what I had. So it's kind of a mirror image of it. You'll see here where it says job ID. And the job ID is honestly the estimate ID. And it's created when you create your estimate, and it brings it across. So we're following that through. The estimate ID is the job ID. Remember when we brought it in, it asked what type, and it brought it in as service, and then we brought it in to track work areas or services. And this is locked, so you can't make a change there. The CRM information, so this is going to give you the job site information and the customer, the job site address, and then it'll populate, if it's calculating it right and the address matches in, you'll have a longitude and latitude that will show up within this. If there's not a longitude and latitude, then your route optimization will not work. And we'll get into route optimization when we start getting into our job groups and into our looking at our schedules. At the bottom, you'll see where we have street map, site map. So at this point, you could enter the URL for a street map or a site map or have a website link if by chance this customer was a commercial client and had a website. Any questions about the job overview, this first part? What I didn't really focus on, if this customer is a cancel customer or they're inactive, you can just basically check or uncheck this. So checked is active, unchecked is inactive. So then we get into notes, and as it says, these are internal notes. So if you put notes in here, don't expect to see them anywhere else. This is just internal notes. So if you're in the middle of something, and let's say you're in the middle of working through scheduling, or you're in the middle of setting the job up, and you have to leave to go deal with something, you can say, pick up where left off with scheduling. So you put notes in there for yourself. You walk away. When you come back to it, it's going to tell you. So this is internal notes to yourself or whoever's working within the job. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
There isn't anything that's going to put this from anywhere else, and this doesn't go anywhere else. This is just kind of a blank canvas that you're just going to put information in to benefit whoever's in this job. So now we go to payroll codes. And so if you're going to run your payroll through QuickBooks, then you can set up your payroll codes, and we would set them up. And so this is hourly wages, and that's going to be regular, and then overtime, and then we have salaries, and so that's going to be wages, salary, we save. So now we've got these payroll codes that are set.
Hey,
Now,
Dave,
You're
would
not
it
using
the same thing if
QuickBooks.
we're using paychecks?
Yeah, I would do that only because when you look at when we get into reports, which is kind of downstream from what we're talking about today, when I run a payroll report, an hours report, it will actually show overtime and it'll show field wage labor. And so it's nice having that in the report because sometimes the numbers are going to come through and it just jumps out at me. So I would do it, yes. In order to be able to do that, let's go over here to this gear. And if we went to payroll codes and I went to this, then let's see, optional payroll code is active. So these are the payroll codes we have set. Let me go back here. Payroll and overtime. So you can set your standards here. And here we have our default payroll codes we have set. And you can go and set up to, do you pay overtime? Do you have salaried workers? So this is all preset for you. If you want to change it, you go up to the gear, that's where you're going to go. Oh, by the way, if for whatever reason, go ahead.
If we're using Paychex instead of QuickBooks, is it the same process?
Yeah, you're processing your payroll. You're processing the data the same way. At some point, you're going to take that data and you're going to depart from the system if you're going to Paychex, or you're going to depart from the system to go to ADP, or you're going to stay in the system and you're going to drive it into QuickBooks. So all I'm saying is that this is a setup process and you want to make sure that we have it set up properly so that if you're wanting to track that information, you can. Otherwise, you'll have to go back and add it in later.
Thank you.
So if for whatever reason you don't have the gear, because I hear this a lot, well, I don't have a gear, then go over to staff and go to staff list. And you'll see where in staff list, and mine doesn't show it, but you'll actually see where an employee, there's an approval process. There's like a security process that you can go through. And so you can open them up to be able to do some things. So you can lock people out of making changes within the system. And so that's built into it. So if I had another employee here, and I'll show this to you a little bit later because I'm going to show you an active job that has information. And I'm kind of telling you what's going to be in here, but I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's been into production.
Dave, since you are there, let me ask you something. I tried creating a new employee. As you know, I have someone starting next week. And then it asks me for a new LMN login. Do we pay extra for extra users?
The answer is no, you don't pay extra if it tells you you're paying extra, just disregard it. We have negotiated a flat price and you have unlimited users.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if we're in the job, wherever it went. There's the install. Let's see. Let me just type it in. Oh, it's John Doe. I changed the name. So we're in the job, and we went from job overview. Then we have scoreboard. So this is going to be have relevant information. What's the status? So it's going to show you had so many man hours, and here's how much you've spent. So this is kind of nice. The guys kind of like looking at this because it kind of gives them a snapshot of how they're doing. And then we get into job files. And so in job files, this would be where we might upload the file of, say, a property map. So let's do, here's a zip code map, just okay. So maybe this is a property map for this customer. And so now you have a property map that's been uploaded into the system. And your guys will have access to this from their mobile device. When you're doing snow, it's nice because you can actually have the snow map. So you're actually telling people, hey, put snow over here. Here are the areas you get salt. Here are the places you don't. And so this is really helpful, very helpful. In the past, we used to put it into a 3-ring binder. Now we can just put this information into the job itself. So now we get to groups.
Hey, Dave,
Yes, sir.
are we going to have any kind of like class or training or maybe even a one-on-one where we can go through how to build that map in there for snow?
Yes. And Snow School,
Okay.
I'm working on Snow School now. It'll be in Toledo, and I want to say that it's going to be in the month of August. So we will have Snow School. We hold Snow School every year. We're doing it in Toledo. Last year we did it actually in San Antonio. So we did it at Reunion, which was 120 degrees that day. So, but no, we normally hold it in Cleveland. We're going to hold it in Toledo, and I've talked to some of our vendors, Meyer and Douglas Dynamics, which is SnowX and Western, and they're excited about coming in. And I'm working on the teaching materials for that. So we'll have a 2-day session, and then vendors will bring in equipment, and so it's kind of a fun thing. And for anybody that's never been to Toledo, it's an opportunity for you to go to the Glass City. So we get to groups. All I'm going to tell you about groups right now is that groups are what we would consider like a route list. So if you said to me that Monday, I'm going to mow Mrs. Jones. Well, if I go up to add to groups, you'll see I've got groups that are populated here. So I've got one mowing team here, team 1, and Monday is their mowing route. That's when I'm going to mow this customer. And so when I say okay, then they're in what we call a job group, or as I define it as, this is actually a route list. Okay. So, and I'm going to show you what this looks like after I get finished with this. I'm going to show you what the groups look like and how those work interactively. So then we get down to time tracking and we get to tasks. So every job has a task or multiple tasks. And in this case, I'm just going to open up the mowing, and you can see that the note that I put in earlier today, close gate after service, dog will get out if you don't, that came across when I put that into the crew members' notes. And so this is going to pop up when you clock into the job, and it's telling you right up front what you need to do. You can see here that it's brought over your cost code, and then there's some other options here. This is default. The rest of it you can choose to include or not include. And so just know that when it comes across, it's pretty much set up the way it should be. I wouldn't necessarily check any of these boxes unless you're absolutely certain you want to do that. It shows you. Go ahead.
Sorry. Does the note carry over for the punch out task as well? Like in this case, they don't, I mean, they may forget by the time it's time to leave, but you know, are they going to get a reminder on the task note before they punch out of that job?
No, they won't. Okay. But I have a way around that.
Okay.
Okay. So it will not, but I have a way around that I can actually show you. Okay. So now, so we have our estimated man hours for the entire job. So this is all the mowing visits divided by 28. So it says that we have 40 minutes per visit. Okay. So I'm just going to hit OK here. And if we went through the rest of it, every one of these pages looks the same, right? So then I get to history and photos. So this is going to show you all the activity. I mowed them on this day. Here's a photo that the guys took in the field that they uploaded. And so this is kind of a really dynamic. It's also going to show me materials that we used. So this is a really nice place to go. We're using this a lot for snow, and I'll show you how that looks when we go into an active franchise owner's account. When we look at services under service tracking, if I go into mowing, you can see that mowing doesn't have any materials associated with it. You can see the number of visits. You can see this is included, so that's a season contract. If it wasn't included, it was billed per visit, then it's per visit, or hourly for hourly. So and we're showing the dates, so we can choose to hide, show the date, or show date and time. So why would we want to show date and time? When would be a time when we would want to show date and time?
When the customer has asked for a specific job at a specific day, like prep my backyard for 4th of July.
No, not from a scheduling aspect. So
How about if they have a child that they take a nap at 10 o'clock in the morning? You don't want to make sure you don't mow at 10 o'clock in the morning.
no, because all this is a timestamp. All this is a timestamp, and this timestamp is going to say to you that we did this on this date at this time. So this is not a pre-warning thing. This is not a communication up front thing. This is an after.
Would it be like the client's complaining about something and you need to know when your crew was there and about maybe what happened?
Yeah, so that might be one where if the client said you weren't here, you could say, well, actually I was, and I was here at that time. Now, remember that we have this longitude, latitude, so every time the guys will actually clock in or out of something, we have a time stamp. We have a stamp for where they were, and so we can always go back to that. I think what I'm getting at here is if I'm out providing a service, and let's say that service requires a time, so I'm fertilizing and my pesticide application requirements are that we log the time of the application, then I might have date and time set because I need to refer back to that when I'm going through a pesticide audit, okay? That's one. The second one, which is actually more frequent that happens, which is I'm out plowing snow and I got about 2 inches. And so I call my guys out and it's 9 a.m. and we're plowing snow and it keeps snowing and it keeps snowing. And we finish plowing that. We're on moving through our route and the property we were on accumulates more snow and I'm back on at 9 o'clock in the evening and I'm plowing it again. Well, if I don't show date and time, then when I go to invoice it, it's actually going to show that I did plowing 2 times on a single day, but it doesn't necessarily differentiate the 2 times. So by adding the time in there, it actually allows us to differentiate it. So when the client comes back and says, no, you made a mistake. You billed me for 2 plowings on this date. We can go back and say, no, we actually plowed you twice. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So in this case, we're going to show date because that's pretty much the standard. And you can see here where it says mowing done or mow done. And so when you have the question of what's the done mean? Well, this is what shows up on the invoice. This is what actually shows up on the customer's proposal. And so that's where the done comes from. And then we have taxable. Are they taxable or not? And then we have flag for review. So if we flag this for review, and a lot of times we'll do this for irrigation projects or hourly projects, where when we hit that, when we check this off, later on downstream, when we get to another part of the LMN time, it will actually highlight something and it flags it so that when you get there, it brings it to the surface and says, wait, you can't move forward until you go through and review this. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So there are going to be times when you're going to go, well, I'm going to send the guys out to do this, but I don't want to go ahead and do my invoicing until I get my hands on it. So that's where that comes in. Now, the other one we have is maximum visits. So in maximum visits, I can actually check this box and it's going to give me 2 options: generate warnings for additional visits or generate billing warnings for additional visits. I kind of like the first one. I don't want to find out in the billing side. I want to find out from the scheduling side. And so it's going to tell me that I'm coming up, I'm at the end and I need more visits. So if I'm mowing and I mow 28 cuts and my guys go back out to go mow again, then it's going to send up a warning saying you're now mowing beyond your 28 cuts. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the taxable. How does the taxable here interferes or interacts with the tax information on the estimate?
So here's what I'm going to tell you. You can toggle on and off tax several places within the software. And so the tax and the estimates calculated based on the information you entered into your item catalog. And then by checking the taxable box, that actually allows that tax to go through. If by chance something happens, and let's say you get to the invoice and a tax is not included and this wasn't checked, but you wanted to add tax, you can actually add tax to the invoice when you do the invoicing. So honestly, this is somewhat irrelevant. It's somewhat irrelevant, but it's yet another place that, you know, that you can select yes or no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so so we have these and these services. So I want to go into the link materials here real quick. So let's go to bed weeding. So if I went into bed weeding and I wanted to link in a weed control, so let's see what we got here. Insecticide glyphosate. So that's Roundup. So I can attach Roundup to this. So now I have a material that's attached to bed weeding. So when the guys go to clock into the bed weeding, when they're done, it's going to come up and ask them, how many gallons did you use of your product? So if they used like, half a gallon, then they're going to put 0.5 in. And I'm going to show you what this looks like when they do that. I need to mute somebody here. It sounds like water. Okay, I can't see who it is. Okay. So that's your services. And so then we're going to go down to materials. And this is going to be, and I was kind of going through this last night on a job I was setting up for my son. The problem with this is if you put materials here, it'll apply materials to every single one of these. And so every time you clock into mowing, it's going to ask you how much Roundup did you put down. So what you want to do is really go into the services and attach your materials here. This is only when you're going to want to ask that question, is what materials did you use for every single task or service that's in the estimate, in the job. Does that make sense? So this applies to the entire job.
So you had me do this with snow and inches, and I went back in and I think I went into materials and attached them that way instead of services.
Well, yes. So what happens is that these would have automatically had it attached. So let's do that. Let's go in and let's go to jobs, and we're going to go to services, and let's go to bed weeding. And you can see that it's not linked. So I can go in here and link that Roundup or glyphosate in. Where are we at here? Right there. I can link that in. And I can save that. So now what happens is every time we bring bed weeding in, every time we bring a job in from GG Pro into LMN Time, then if there's bed weeding, it will already be attached. We wouldn't have had to do that. So your point is that with snow, we're measuring snow depth in inches. So that's already attached to it.
Okay.
We didn't have to add it. And if you're into the brine, where's it at? We had salt. So we're going to go down to salt, anti-icing application. You can see here we don't have anything attached to it. So we should. And we don't want to hide the date either. So I'm not sure why that's there. So that should actually be date and time. And so if I go to materials and I add those in, salt is going to be salt bags, no, salt pounds and salt tons is what I want there. Save. When I go to salt de-icing, just to make sure that we have this set up properly, date and time, salt de-icing, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put tons and pounds. So every time we bring across anti-icing or de-icing, let me look at sidewalks just to make sure while I'm in here. You guys can watch me go through them. and fix this. So sidewalks are going to actually get ice melt pounds or tons. Let's see, sidewalk, where are we at? And I double check, okay, that's good. And then I'm going to go to de-icing, sidewalk de-icing. And I have 4 materials there. So I really don't need salt for my de-icing. That's for sidewalks, and we don't put salt on sidewalks. And then I'm showing date and time included. Okay, so that's good. Now, let me go back to the job here.
Hey, Dave, I have a question on what you just did. That is only for LMN. That's not for job costing. So if you did bed weeding and you sprayed Roundup and you forgot to put it into job cost, it's not going to be there, correct?
It's not pushing it across for job costing. So
This
let me use
just for the guys, just so they know.
let me use an example. So like for mulch, if I said it was a 10-yard job, then I link my mulch. I link the materials. So that means that when they clock into mulch install, when they clock out of mulch install, a pop-up comes up and it says how much mulch did you install. It's going to say it's going to be a 2 cubic foot bag, a 3 cubic foot bag, or yards. And they're going to check the one that is applies, and then they're going to type in their quantity. So if they use 9 yards and the budget was 10, they're communicating back to you what their product usage was. I had a situation, we were in Toledo, we were going through their numbers, and they were talking about this one job, and they said the job called for 82 yards of mulch, and they only put 47 yards down, and yet they spent like 90 hours doing it. And I thought, holy cow, they must have really, it must have been a difficult job, like on a slope or something. And so there were certain things that jumped out at us. And the way we were able to see it was that we actually had the information that we had asked for. The crew is communicating back to us. It's not for job costing purposes. However, if I know this, I know that if I didn't spend more money on the mulch than what I budgeted, and I know that I didn't lay more mulch down than what I budgeted, then I'm probably looking at a job that's a win, especially if my guys finish the job on time and on schedule. So I don't know that I need to job cost that. If my job's done on time and on schedule, I didn't spend more than I should have on mulch, and I didn't lay more than I was supposed to, then I don't need to look at that anymore. That's a win. I'm moving on. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
That's my version of job costing. It's a quick down and dirty. And if something comes up and it becomes an issue, and I look at it and say, wait, my labor's off. I spent too much time, or wait, you put down too much product, then those are red flags. That's when I stop and I start drilling deeper. What happened here? What was our problem? Is it something that we can fix? And what did we do to ourselves? That's my version of job costing. Problem, reason, solution. Move on. So now, let's see. So let's go down. We were at services, materials, hourly rates. I don't want you to really be too worried about hourly rates right now. You can put hourly rates in for certain services. It's a little bit more complex from the estimating standpoint, and I would like for everyone to just kind of stay focused on, the basics for right now. If you run across any kind of hourly rate estimates, we can sit down and work through those for sure. But I'd rather that these be kind of one-offs and that we're not doing this consistently. And the reason being is I kind of have a philosophy is that if you don't know how to estimate it, you probably have no business doing that work. Occasionally, hourly rates are going to come in play when I have certain things that I'm going to do. When we get into schedules, I'm going to get into scheduling in a more detail in another workshop. But this is where we would create schedules. So if I went in to add you can see that comes up and says one-time job or recurring job. So I'm going to open up the recurring job, and now I'm going to select a template if I had a template built, in this case just custom. So then I can take the mowing and I take the weeding, the fall cleanup, the sidewalk edging, and the spring cleanup, and I can hit next. And you can see it starting the process. So now I'm going to go to edit, and this is where I'll take the mowing. I'll set it up weekly. We'll set the mowing day as Friday, and then I can go ahead and set up the start date, which let's say is April 15th. And let's say the end date is October 30th. And let's say we're mowing every week. Then if I go over here, you can see I have 28 cuts set up. So I have these man hours over a 28 cut schedule. And so now at this point, I can select the crew, and I can select the manager, and then I can save it, and it'll create a schedule. So you can see here I have a schedule set. So it actually set me up with, I've got 28 cuts here. And you can see it's already pre-populated the cuts. And so when my guys clock into it and they finish it, it's going to say what date they completed it, and it's going to show it was completed by who. And you can see the service task was mowing. So that's a preset. Now the other way we can do this, let me go back here. So the other way we can do this is we can set this up on what we call wait lists. So here's a wait list. So maybe I don't.
Dave.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The first scheduling that you did it for one job, not for a crew, correct?
I scheduled the mowing that's going to show up on the calendar.
But the mowing for one estimate, for one customer.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I have it. So when we get into scheduling, and again, this is a whole nother workshop, I'm going to start showing you the bulk scheduling, and I'll start showing you the wait list, and we'll get more in depth into scheduling. I just want to show you this is where you're going to go in if you wanted to schedule a job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I went through this last night with my son, and we set up what we call schedule templates, and it speeds up the scheduling process significantly. But this is information that's going to become available to you in another session next week, okay?
So right now we have to do one of these for each customer that we have under contract.
Yeah, but it's not bad. I mean, to be quite honest with you, once you have once you end up with a scheduled template, once we've created that, it's actually faster to schedule by going into each job than it is to go through and use bulk scheduling.
Huh.
And I went through that process, and I totally agree with that. And this is really what the developers from LMN, they said that honestly, bulk scheduling is available to you because people demanded it, but the reality is it's a slower process.
Mm-hmm.
So until we get involved in this and I get into that workshop, I'm just showing this to you. You can go in and play with it all you want, but I'm just saying we don't have enough time to put that into today, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So scheduling is, there's a process for that. Then there's a process if you put it into a wait list, meaning I'm going to put them into this bucket, and there's going to come a time when I'm going to go schedule that. So what are some examples of what I might put into a wait list?
People on hold for mulch.
So maybe I want to put my mulch in there. Maybe I'm selling mulch in January, where I've got customers that I've sold mulch for, and I'm not really sure I know what I'm going to how I'm going to put them into a schedule. Maybe I want to get them on the wait list so I can actually look at that list and understand. Maybe I'll print that list out, do some organization, and then I'll be able to then decide what dates those are going to go onto the schedule and what crews. So then we get into invoice activation, and you can see here that the invoice was activated. And if you go, and there's your contract date, and if we go into invoice schedule, you can actually see this is the invoice schedule that we created in our estimate. And this is going to show, the next one is invoices. So any invoices that you invoice the customer. And like I said, I'm going to show you here another franchise's activities, so you can see the actions here. You'll be able to see it. And then when I get into payments, this is where if you decided to record payments in GG Pro, this is where you would show those. Most of the time, well, you're collecting payments to QuickBooks. We're managing AR in QuickBooks. So the reality is that most of our guys don't really even reconcile it here. So payments is something that's there, but it's not something that we actually utilize. Okay, so this is the job. When in the job list, when somebody's brought in and imported, that's it. Now I'm going to go over to the other one, which is the install job. And so this is the one that we did that was the tree planting. So what we're going to do is just put this in here. So now, this is the tree planting job. So if we go down, we have the same thing. We've got job overview, notes, payroll codes. We've got the scoreboard. We've got job files. So in this case, we might take a picture of the property so that they can kind of get a visual of what they may see as far as when they get to the site. We've got job groups. So in job groups, we may come down and put this into maybe an install crews job group. We have tasks. We have 3 tasks: installation of the oak tree, and then we have these other 2 that we brought in that we talked about earlier. And then we have history and photos. And then we get into services. And we don't see any services here because we don't have them. We're clocking into tasks and completing tasks when we're doing standard projects. And so then materials, any materials we're attaching to this job, any hourly rates. We can schedule this work and we can put it on a wait list if we wanted to. We activated the invoice. So we're activated when we do process our work. You can see that. And in this case, you can see that we're actually short in payments. So here's where we set up our invoicing for this. So our job, we're going to set up 2 invoices. And so that means that our payment is $242.77. And so I'm going to add in $242.77, and let's just say that today's date, I've sold this today and I'm collecting the deposit for this job today. Nope. I'm collecting the deposit. So this is tree planting, planting, and this is 50% deposit, right? And then I'm going to set up the balance. So that's going to be tree planting. And this is 50% balance due upon completion. So now we've set up the invoicing for this customer. And let's say in the schedule, we're actually going to do the install the week of the February 3rd. So we're going to put that in that we're going to bill that. We're going to bill that when we're finished with the job. So now this invoicing is already, that's set up and ready to go now. Any questions about this?
No, not about this, but back to the schedule visits. It's a little bit different screen from the service. How do you schedule the visit with this one?
You're scheduling a single. You're not scheduling an interval. You're actually scheduling it to a specific date.
So you click in. Let me see if I can follow.
So what I would encourage that you do is when you see the invitations to the workshops next week, I'm going to get into scheduling, and we're going to spend an entire hour on scheduling.
Okay.
And if we need to, we can spend more than that. I might maybe go ahead and set up 2, like with estimating. I might set 2 up. Scheduling is important when we get into it. I'll get in depth to the point where we'll do a schedule, and then you can see it on the calendar, and you can see it on the whiteboard, and you can see the interactive way to utilize it. A lot of your questions are warranted, but we just don't have time to get deep into the weeds on those yet. I'm trying to show you the import and the different pieces and parts of this. Like I said, as soon as I'm finished with this description, then I'll go into an account and I'll show you some active stuff, and it may open your eyes a little bit to what I'm talking about.
Perfect. Thank you.
So then we get in.
Hey, Dave, can you, when you and I were working on this the other day, you did something with the task where you merged them instead of having to clock in and out. Are you going to cover that?
I'm not going to cover that, but I will. I am going to cover it, but I'm not covering it today.
Okay.
I am going to cover it, but I'm not covering it today. So this, again, invoices that are active for this, on this, if any invoices were done on this job, and then any payments, if you decided to do that. Like I said, I'd ignore the payments. So that is that. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. So we went in yesterday, and I'm going to go into jobs, and I brought in Ravine South. So we're going to bring in Ravines and search, and Ravine South 2020 lawn and landscape maintenance. So this is the screen, and if you look, our job overview, notes, payroll codes. And again, this is job type default. So this is what was already set. So I don't have to change those. And so this all looks pretty good. We didn't put anything in here. We get into the scoreboard, and you can kind of see it's populating all this information. And it says that this contract has 497.62 man hours in it. And so you're going to be able to utilize this to actually track your progress. Okay. Then we get into groups. There were 15 groups that we have set up for this customer. So we have a fall cleanup group, a mowing Tuesday group. We've got a mulch, a shrub prune fall, shrub prune spring. We've got a spring cleanup, bed edge, and a pre-emergent group. We've got a sprinkler startup, winterization. And then we spray bragworms. We spray magnolia scale. Then we've got turf aeration, and then we've got 4 lawn applications that we have groups for. And so remember what I said earlier, these are route lists. So when I said we're going to go out and do our aerations, every single customer that has an aeration is in a job group. So I can go and pull my entire list of everybody that gets an aeration, and I can actually take that list, and I can run through that list pretty quickly. If I wanted to, I could actually go, well, I'll show you in a minute. When I go into jobs, I can actually type in the service name and or the task, service task, and it'll come up too. This one is AmeriMulch Black. We're using that mulch. We have Ever Black, it's another mulch, and then we have Custom Hardwood, which is a regular mulch that's not stained. So what we're doing is we're keeping track of what have we sold. And in this case, we sold Ever Black. It's an Ever Black. Or I'm sorry, AmeriMulch Black. So then we get to tasks. These are all the tasks that we have set up for this customer. And again, in these tasks, we actually, you can see we don't have any task notes, but you can see the information that I showed you earlier is consistent. If we look at history and photos, we don't have anything because we haven't done anything. Because we just imported this yesterday. You can see here that we actually have our services and we have 2 per visit. And then the rest of them are all on a season contract. So this is a blended billing service, blended billing contract or job. If you look at materials, we don't have any materials for this, but if you look here, if I go to my mulch, I've got, yards of mulch. If you go to turf care, I've got pounds of fertilizer, dry, liquid fertilizer, or pre-emergent in pounds. So when I get to scheduled visits, we went in and scheduled the visits, and so you can see here that we did what I showed you. We scheduled the visits. April 14th was our start date. And then we also scheduled our weeding. So we have our mowing and our weeding. And then we scheduled our sidewalk edging. And then if you go into wait lists, we wait listed our spring cleanup, our bed edging, our mulch. We wait listed those right now. And we're gonna go back in and schedule those once we start getting the rest of the contracts into the system. When you look at invoice activation, our invoices is active. And you look, we have our invoice schedule that we have set. And you can see actually that we invoiced this customer for their January 1st invoice already. So if we wanted to look at that invoice, I can see that's the invoice that we sent across. If I wanted to go down and look at this invoice, I can see the invoice here as well. So it shows me that we exported this invoice on January 1st. And so this is the invoice and it shows exported. Any questions about this now that you've seen kind of what we have built that's active here?
Can you just show one more time when linking materials? I guess I just missed where you can find the rest of that list of the particular breakdowns of for snow, for instance, 0 to 2, 2 to 4.
So you go up to gear.
Okay. Yep.
And if you go to the gear, you go to jobs.
Okay.
And you go, if you go to materials, you go to your list of materials.
Okay.
Okay. If you go over to services, it'll get you the service list.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
And if you go into driveway clearing, for instance, then we're going to be checking for snow. And so we link the material there.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So I'm going to spend some time on another workshop where we're going to go through this setup of LMN time. But I wanted to focus on really getting the job in and going through this process so you could actually see this. So we're going to go to this setup for LMN time, and you'll see that in a little bit more detail. All right, so then let's take a look at what this looks like from a schedule standpoint. I'm going to look at the calendar. I'm going to select my mowing crew. So I have that selected. I want my mowing crew 1. And then manager, we've got Josh. And then I'm going to look at this by month. And then let's just go look and see what April looks like. So you can see that Ravine South has mowing and weeding. And then we've got mowing, weeding, and sidewalk edging. And you can see each month. So if I took this and I went to the month of May, you can see they're on the schedule. In the month of June, in the month of July, and it just goes on because we preset our schedule for a Tuesday cut. Any questions about this?
Nope.
Sorry about that. We're a little bit excited here. So you can see this. Now, if I go to the whiteboard, I can actually look at this. So let's go to April 14th. And so you can see that Ravine South is on the whiteboard too. So we can see that here. If I wanted to, I can actually move this over to unassigned, or I can leave it assigned. So you can move things around. Same thing when you're on the calendar, you can actually move things around. So just 1 second, I'm going to close the door. Okay, I'm back. All right, so when you get into the calendar, and let's just bring us into, let's go by month. Let me get into that one. It's easier. So I could actually move to a different day if I wanted. This is very fluid. If I wanted to make some moves. So you wouldn't have to go through a lot just to make some changes if you decided you're going to move somebody. Schedule review. So this will tell you what's overdue. So if you had anything on this list that that you didn't do, it's going to show. So if you had somebody scheduled to be mowed today, and tomorrow you went in and looked at this, or yesterday and you looked at this today, it would show the customer wasn't serviced. And so this is extremely important when managing your services. The wait list is going to show us what we have on wait list. So let's take a look at a wait list service. Let's actually just type in by service. So let's do spring. Let's do spring cleanup. And let's say as of maybe not. Let's try mulch. Bear with me here. So you can see here, we actually have Ravine South set up for mulch on the future. And so if I go in and look at this, this is actually brings us a map view. So we could actually pinpoint all the customers that get mulch would come up onto this, and you could actually select a certain area and you want to grab all the customers in that area. You can actually go and schedule just by doing that. It was very interactive and it's very quick. And like I said, I'm going to get more involved in this in more detail when we do a section on the scheduling itself. There's bulk scheduling. We have unscheduled jobs, unscheduled routes, and then scheduled templates. And so we'll build scheduled templates together. So for the guys in the South, they'll have a mowing template that's going to be a 2-week schedule and a 1 week and a weekly schedule. And so you'll transition between those, and we'll have that set up for you. In this case, this is the standard schedule that we set up for Josh. And so at that point, when we bring in new jobs, this schedule is the one we're going to use. So once we've scheduled one job, then we pretty much scheduled every job that we bring in. It's just going to ask us to select which schedule we want. We'll select yes, we're good, and it just pushes it through. So that's why I said it's faster than the bulk scheduling. by far. So we've reached the end of our time. And I do want to open things up for questions. I know I did a lot more talking and a little bit less asking for questions. And so what questions do you guys have?
I know you haven't done your schedule yet, but for my scheduling purposes, when will you have the schedule for next week?
I'm going to tell you the times that I have slotted, put together. You can't see this. Let me show you my screen. Bear with me here. So next week I've got Monday at 11 Eastern. So the same time next week as this week in the morning, except for Thursday. So I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we've got Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern. We've got it scheduled the entire week. So we'll have 9 workshops next week instead of 8. And I'll have those out tomorrow. And you'll have the specifics for each of them so you'll know what they are.
Dave, this is Susie. Will you be starting with maybe a little bit of a refresher on Monday, or at least the working with the LMN time? I know we spent some good solid time on GG Pro and the estimates. Struggling a little bit with bringing over to LNM time. So will you be doing a refresher at all?
I can go back and do the session I did this morning. That's what we call bringing over to LMN time. And so we can do that session again. And then I can do this one again, and then I can do then we can move into scheduling. Let me ask the group here. Would there be a benefit to include some more estimating next week, or do we kind of have that down?
I think I'm good.
Rich Roman, what do you think?
Good. What I'd like to see is I know you talked about it this morning, about these recordings. Again, this is a lot of information you're putting out there. So I would love to review all of these over the weekend.
Yeah, so Rich, as I said to everybody, that I'm going through the process of getting them recorded and getting them out.
Yep, no, I know.
As soon as I get them out today, then I will. I've already recorded this morning's and I've got it set and ready. I just need to go through the rest of them.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
So my question to you was specifically, what would you feel like estimating would be a benefit to go through again?
For me, no. I was just trying to do this piece here again. This would be a more beneficial exercise.
Because that's where you are in the process. Okay. Bafana, how about you?
For me, it would be, I think going over the different types of estimates was good. And I think I'm good for now for what I'm focusing on. I'm going to have to look at this video for bringing it over the time side. I missed the first part of it. But that is where I'm going to be focusing on probably in the next week or so, is actually, going into time and having people clock in and clock out. So I'll, depending on how the review of the video goes, I'll know.
Right. So you understand I'm kind of doing this. There's a method to my madness. So we're going to get to time and we're going to get to the time at, but I want to make sure that everybody has got full access to understanding to get to that point. So that's going to happen next week. So if that's a more valuable session for you, then look forward, look for those, the invites for those times.
Yeah. I mean, with where I am, these have worked out perfectly. So
good. Carl, how about you?
I think I'm good with estimating, and I don't know if this is something that that, you know, is just done separately, but I'm still kind of in my setup mode as far as setting up GG Pro with all the defaults and everything. I've done some of that. Is that something that we just do on our own, or, you know, between you and I, or is that something that you would go through it?
We would have to discuss specifically what you mean by setups. If it's things like getting rid of the snow from your account because you don't have the snow work, then, you know, that's something you and I would do.
Yeah.
But in relative to estimating and bringing jobs in and utilizing them and putting them into a schedule, setting the jobs up, utilizing that schedule on a timesheet, the time app, and then pushing it across to invoicing. Those are all like the foundational things that everybody has to learn and use. So if there are specifics, things that you have questions for on some setup things or something that I showed here that you're a little bit confused on, then we can deal with those on a one-on-one basis. And then during those sessions, I can, you know, if it seems like we need to go add this to the topic, we'll bring it back in.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm good then. I mean, I'm just in the process after this week's training and some of the things that we went through. I see that it's going to make my life easier if I get stuff all set up where I can just drag it in and you know, like you said, with the little star, putting the star in front of it and all that stuff. So that's just what I'm doing. So I didn't know if there was any more about that. But other than that, I'm good. I'm ready to move on to time.
Good. Awesome. How about you, Damien?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I think I had a problem with some of the invoicing from bringing the job over to LMN and then getting it to generate the invoice. But I think it was because of the recurring service, a one-time thing, and the contract, and because there was another job scheduled, or not another job scheduled, but those pieces. But I know, like you said, you had the videos. Once you get them out, the more I look at them and stuff, I think the better off I'll be.
Good.
And if there are any questions, I'll just reach out.
Awesome. Good. I'm looking here. Lucas, you already said. How about you, Megan? Okay. Travis?
I think the invoicing that we'll be doing coming up will be real beneficial for me. Also, the LMN time stuff we have coming up. The estimating, I think I'm pretty solid on.
Okay. Jason, last but not least.
So I'll just echo, like, this will be great when I can go back and review it kind of at my own pace. It's a lot to digest, but I shot you an email requesting some one-on-one time. So if you'll just look at your calendar and tell me what you got, then I'll make myself available and we can knock out some things that are kind of specific to me.
Absolutely. I want you to know that this week and next week you're drinking from a fire hose. We're going to get this into more of a cycle where it goes from Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. So there's a break in between. So there's a little bit more time to digest. There's a little bit more time to work on practicing. But I was really, my main concern was to be able to get you as much information as I could from this class and get you up to speed, because I felt like this class could handle it. You guys were all extremely attentive, and I really didn't feel like there was anyone that would slow us down. So I felt like, it was better to get the stuff in your hands and let you digest it than to piecemeal it out to you. So thank you so much.
Hey, Dave?
Yes.
If I had one wish list for something that may be recorded, it would be a cradle to grave, starting an estimate and following it all the way through LMN time, through the invoicing, everything non-stop. Just one quick, smooth motion would be on my wish list.
So what I'll do is maybe that'll be something I'll do maybe next Friday. I'll put it together and maybe we'll just run one through all the way.
I'll second that. I think that would be useful.
Yeah. I'll put one together, but we'll do it towards the end of the week because you'll be able to actually see the other things leading up to it so that when you watch that process, you know, you're going to understand it better. Okay. Well,
Great, thanks.
I got another call I got to run to. The guys in Huntsville, Alabama are waiting on me. So you guys have a great weekend and look for the recordings to come to you. Look for the invites for next week's workshops. And then for those that we need to schedule calls with, I'm going to work through that stuff this weekend too. So if you have anything that comes up in the meantime, feel free to reach out, text me or call me or email me.
Thanks, Dave.
Adios. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.